Okay, this is the type of sky that we've been looking at for the past 9 days. We'll have a sky that's just slightly cloudy, and the next thing you know, we've got rain clouds blowing up. For the last 9 days, we have averaged having at least one rain shower per day. Sometimes it's been 2 or 3 rain showers. That's great for the garden because it's getting watered, but it's not good for the tomatoes. I originally thought these were the hillbilly potato leaves, but I'm beginning to wonder if I did have it mixed up. And this is what the rain is doing. The leaves are turning yellow and they're getting these little spots on them. If you flip them over, maybe that's bug damage, but I'm really fearing the worst. I fear it's blight. I've already pulled several of these out of the ground. These are not the worst ones. If I go on down, you can see the tops of these plants look fairly healthy. I am noticing I do have some tomatoes on these tomatoes here in the shade, but there's definitely a lack of tomatoes unless the sun's hitting on them at least 8 or 9 hours. And here's what I'm having. I'm quite sure that is blight. I have followed the rustic gardener's advice, and I have sprayed some baking soda and water on them. Hopefully that'll help take care of it. I meant to early on put some Epsom salt under the tomatoes, mix it with water and water them. Never got that done. Since they're just in mushroom compost, I thought, well, maybe they are lacking a little magnesium. So I mixed up a batch this morning. I put about 2 tablespoons, no, correction, about 1 tablespoon per gallon of water and poured it on them. We'll see if that helps them any. As for these tomatoes, I've pulled all of these leaves off of them. They're just pitiful. Now this is not one of the tomatoes off of that one, but this is what's happening. The bottoms of the tomatoes are getting blight. These tomatoes look good now that I've got all these bad leaves pulled off. And the silly things are better than 9 foot tall now. Because right here I'm at eye level, and this is all the way up, and as you can see above the fence. They've not even started really getting ripe. I had one get ripe, but it was because of blight. But they're a beautiful tomato. The plants are just hanging full of gorgeous tomatoes. What we thought were mortgage lifters, but the tomatoes that my friends have that were set out just a little earlier than mine, they're actually a yellow tomato with a red streak. Not what I thought I had. Corner right here is of course my sunrise bumblebee, and yes, they're planted much closer than they should be. But you can see I think the blight's getting to it too. But I have been picking ripe cherry tomatoes, the sunrise bumblebees, and this little vine's going quite wild, so I hope it continues because that is one of our favorite tasting tomatoes. It's a very small tomato, but we absolutely love the taste of it. All right, good morning. This is the way I normally work. No hair, have to wear something to catch the sweat to keep it out of my eyes. What I'm getting ready to do is to finish my vlog about how we try to combat tomato blight before it actually gets started. Once tomato blight hits your vines, they don't last very long. So about the only thing you can do is just pull off the leaves as the blight gets them and try to let what fruit that will ripen. But there are some steps that you can take. The most important thing is that, of course, as I've stated before, blight comes from the ground. It is a fungus that grows in the ground. So I'm going to turn this camera around here. I say I'm going to turn it around. All right, as you can see, I've not worked these tomatoes in some time. The rest of the garden, as far as tomatoes, are in pretty good shape. And these are getting rather tall. They're still very healthy. But what I'm getting ready to do is all of these lower limbs, including these that have bent over and hit the ground. And yes, this is what I set on to keep my little butt dry when I'm working in the garden. But I'm going to take and prune all of these up quite a ways. Now, I have tied these tomatoes once, but since I tied them, I've not been back to put any agricultural lime around the bottom, and I've not retied them. So that's going to be my chore today. Okay, let me show you what I'm going to do here. Here's a sucker that has gotten about probably 12 inches long or longer just in the last week and a half. Not really had that much rain. I don't know what's causing it, but I am taking, see how this limb here runs down towards the ground? I don't want that. I don't want anything touching the ground. So I'm going to snip all of these lower limbs off, leaves, suckers, everything. I'm just going to take them off. And I normally use garden snips, but when I was in the garage this morning, this is what I had. So I like to take everything off at least about 18 inches up. Now, after or here around the bottom of this, I'm going to put about a cup of agricultural lime. I'm going to scatter it and just take my fingers and gently work it in. I am not going to work it in with a hoe, rake, or anything like that. And then I'm going to put about 4 to 6 inches of good straw, not hay. I don't even have hay, and I really wouldn't want hay. I know even with a straw I'm going to have some wheat come up that's in it, or if this could have been oat straw, I didn't notice when I purchased it, could be oats, but those will come up anyways. But they're not nearly as hard as the weeds that I find that come up when you're using hay. Okay, I'll have to say it looks a lot cleaner down through there. And yes, I break all the rules. Typically with tomatoes and pole beans beside it, you'd need at least a 4 or 5 foot row. But I'm an urban gardener. I have very little space. So I'll find room as they get larger to scrunch down in between these vines and pick my produce.